Picture of the sewer, our debt obligations. There are some handouts that got fresh from the county today that explains our annual sewer obligation. If there's someone in the public that wants a copy, you're more than welcome to help yourself. Mark, I want you to kind of explain to the residents and kind of explain to us our obligation as far as the North Gratiot, Macomb, Oakland, all these sewer projects that are going on. Not per se the property, but the financial impact on our community.
Well, thank you, Mr. President. I'll do my best to do that. As you see, the spreadsheet goes and it runs out from this year, 2013, down to 2035, as we look at the debt retirement schedules. The first two columns deal with the North Gratiot Interceptor project. And for the citizens here that don't know, and I didn't bring the map again this meeting, but in 2009, September, Macomb County, because of the third 15-mile sewer break, it was, roughly $30 million over cost by the department, by the Detroit Water and Sewer Department. Macomb County and Oakland County, both the Water Resource Commissioner from Oakland County and Anthony Morocco, Macomb County Public Works Commissioner, decided to purchase the system from Detroit and control the system themselves, thereby saving at least 2.5% on all money spent on construction and reconstruction projects, just because of the poor rating, bond rating in the city of Detroit. It's a fairly investment grade. I don't need to go into any of that. But yet, Macomb County and Oakland County are both AAA rated counties and have an entirely different value picture. And so they made the decision in 2009 to purchase the OMID system, which is the main interceptor that runs from roughly 22.5 miles in Quinder. It takes in 11 or 12, I should say, Oakland County communities, and then it works its way down through Shelby Township, Utica, Sterling Heights, and heads down to the Edison corridor all the way to Detroit at roughly Hoover and 8 Mile at the Northeast Pump Station. And the board, we talked about that last time, the Northeast Pump Station. So, and we're right now, the two counties are in competition, Oakland and Macomb, as to who's going to operate the Northeast Pump Station. And we're negotiating between the two counties, and we're negotiating with the Detroit Water and Sewer Board. They are very desirous in Detroit of us taking over the Northeast Pump Station. So in September of 2010, Mr. Morocco decided that it was very prudent, looking at what Detroit's vision was for correcting the problems in the East Interceptor, the Lakeshore Interceptor, etc., that we should purchase in Macomb County the MID system, or the Macomb Interceptor Drain. The Macomb Interceptor Drain runs roughly down through from your community here. Lennox is built through there, Lennox local, goes through the North Gratiot Interceptor, which is all brand new pump station at 25 Mile in Gratiot, runs all the way down through Harrison Township, or Chesterfield and Harrison.
Mark, not to cut you off, but in
Okay,
layman's
you want me
terms,
to give them a picture?
yeah, in layman's terms,
In other words, there's two giant interceptors that are about 12 feet, 9 inches in diameter that come down and meet together at 15 Mile Road in the Edison corridor in Sterling Heights and head to Detroit. You guys are a big part of the east side, and there's communities, we have 11 communities and over 550,000 people that use this system. Your percentage of the overall cost when there's a common to all cost applied to the system is about 1.044%. You're about 1%, almost 1.5% of the debt retirement, the whole system. There are some other debt that is incurred before that you're roughly 7.5% of the debt retirement. So if you look across the columns, the one thing that I said to you last time, if you look at SRF 5540 and SRF 5547, those are two very minor projects, relatively speaking, to build a chemical treatment and addition facility at 21 Mile in the Interceptor. And that chemical addition is to put ferrous chloride added to the system, which will stop H2S, which is hydrogen sulfide, which is a very, very disturbing and tough gas to deal with, and it is highly corrosive. So for doing all these projects, it has been thought that the best thing to do was to do a chemical addition which would neutralize the hydrogen sulfide and protect the system for the long term. The other thing that I said last time, and I think the folks here should hear, is that this has all been engineered for a 50-year fix, but is expected to go well beyond that, this entire fix. So the column that you were most concerned about, I think, at the last meeting, is that last estimated OMI SRF. That's the $68 million total package on what's called Contract 4, okay, under Segment 3. Very hard to understand, but that is the biggest part of this project. That's where we're going to bring in a Hobos material, it's called, the fiberglass lining material that's going to line most of the Interceptor, partially through Sterling Heights, all the way down through the Edison corridor for 6 miles into Detroit. And that is the major guts of the whole rehabilitation of this. So we've got the Clintondale Pump Station, which is vital to New Haven, and vital to all eastern communities, that is being completely reconstructed at a cost of $22.9 million. That's in here. And so without further ado, I'll just tell you, I know that I've heard different rumors and figures coming from the village here that are talking about like $3.5 million annual debt retirements, and that's just absolutely incorrect. If you look at the final column, the up and down column, the final one to your right, that is your annual debt as we calculate it today on an annualized basis. So if you look at your year, you can project across your debt, and that is the number, and roughly, and there is a huge jump between this year, 2013, and next year, but that's when the guts of all this bond debt retirement occurs, and it's not only bond debt, it's state revolving fund money that we're getting at 2%, and that's even only until about right now has bond issuing revenue type bonds even come close to competing with a 2% retirement interest rate. So those are the best numbers we can get you. Those final two ones that I say aren't there, you would be roughly 1% of an SRF thing that is going to be about $3.5 million maximum to do an odor control facility in the 15-mile portion of your Interceptor and to do the chemical feed. So those are blanks because we haven't gotten to that point yet.
Any questions from the trustees? Trustee Hill.
Now, you said you heard that it was $3 million.
I had just heard that from, I heard it around in our office. I think it was Nancy Ryan or somebody said that there's a rumor or something.
Well, and I can explain why that rumor started.
Okay.
Okay. When I pulled the audit report for, that was 2011, Accounting Genius is supposed to separate the debt. It's not supposed to combine it. We're looking at a combined debt for those years as 3.4. My question is, when I look at 2013 and I see a total debt of 706.94, now this is all our debt, so I'm
Oh, that's your entire debt for all your things.
So this does not include everything that we're paying. This includes just the sewer system, correct?
Yes, this is just the sewer side. Macomb County has nothing to do with the water delivery side.
Okay, so the drinking water revolving loan is in for you guys?
No.
No, that's water, that's Detroit.
Okay.
Yeah, that's DWSD.
Any other questions for
It's
Trustee
in
Hill?
purely sewage.
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Okay, now I'm looking at your total here for 2014.
Yeah.
You have 563, $587. That's our total debt for that year, for the sewer.
Yes, for all sewage, all projects.
Now, my concern, so that, it's not misconstrued, last meeting was, I'm thinking these numbers are double, including our water, because for 2014, for the budget 2014, they're giving us 569, 562, which you have listed here, and our total is, net cash shortfall is 683, 727. So I'm still kind of confused as to how much our debt is according to what you have there. You got the total amount?
That's the total for the village, so that's
For the
not,
village.
that's including this and the other.
So what is your total amount that you have?
Oh, well, I have what, I just gave it to you.
This, 706?
Yeah, 706 for next year.
706, 940.
Yeah.
So we still have a discrepancy in our numbers. This is what I'm saying.
Oh, if you go back to
Different things.
All right, so
Right.
if you go back to, we're starting around this here. This is just a sewer debt. We have a deficit because of manpower. So you have two deficits you're dealing with. You're dealing with the sewer debt.
And the water.
No, you're just dealing with sewer. We're not gonna get on the water. You have a sewer debt that's gonna be next year, 683, 727. There's probably another 90,000 that you have outstanding for upkeep of the sewer. So you add those together, that's how you get your 706. You have the two numbers. Remember, if you go down to our options, under option one is for just the sewer
I
debt.
agree with you. I agree
Oh,
with you.
yeah.
I'm just saying that there's other debts other than just that, including like the water, right?
The water's gonna be separate.
That's separate. And then we also have that look-back fee, that we're gonna have a portion of $90 million to look-back fee. Is that a part of the sewer, or is that part of the water? Do you know anything about that?
That would be part of your metered fees that occur.
So do we know how much that is yet?
1% of.
Is it sewer or is it?
No, it's sewer, it's sewer.
It is sewer.
Right.
So you don't have that number?
It's roughly 1% of 11.9 million.
Right.
So like 10% would be,
So what's
give me the
90?
number.
10% of 11 would be 110,000. 1% you're looking at
Well,
probably,
good, yeah,
I'm sorry, that'd be 1.1 million.
Yeah.
1% would be about 110,000.
right. And that would, yeah,
That's 11 million.
11.9 million, I don't know.
yeah, that's the look back. That's the square up to get us to this
That's
date.
the first look back. fee.
That's the Detroit Water and Sewer Board charge. That's not Macomb County's charge at this
We
point.
got a bill for that, 399,000, right?
Yeah, but I'm talking about, there's a second one that came that said it's 90 million. There's a second.
I'll tell you, I was at the meeting and every community was represented at that meeting. There's 11.9 and there's a second one, but it wasn't 90 million, it was less than the 11.9. And our total numbers from both lookbacks should be under 200,000. Because we're the smallest, we're just part of the
That's
smallest.
total.
Right, for both lookbacks.
That's a DWSD charge. And you have to remember that Mr. Morocco negotiated a 42-month payback period
Right.
versus Detroit wanted the money in 12 months. And we told them that our communities just could not afford that kind of a hit, and that even this hit would be a terrible burden. And it was all because of the miscalculation of the meters at the Northeast Pump Station, remember that? And there was some forewarning to all the communities from what I'm told. I've been working for Mr. Morocco for about a year and a half, but I heard, numerous times that the communities knew this was coming, at least the controllers and the chief financial officers, et cetera. So that look-back charge of 11.9 million for Macomb and about 9 million for Oakland is being assessed over a 42-month period.
It's 42.
42. Mr. Morocco tried to get it at 60. Detroit wanted it all back in 12, and we got it at 42 as we negotiated settlement finally. Because Oakland and Macomb, went elbow to elbow and really fought.
Anything else, trustees? Any other trustees have any questions?
I'm on board.
I know you called, and I'm sorry that I didn't get to.
Oh, no, that's, yeah, I got the answer.
Okay, thank you.
Trustee Brown?
So you saying this dollar amount is every year for the next
2035, we retired.
Each of these columns are spelled out per year. So some of the debts retire faster. If you'll notice, For example, would be,
Go away looking fast.
so these are all assigned in the year that the debt, and it's all projected out based on all the percentages of the state revolving fund monies, et cetera.
So most of it go away 2034.
Yeah, that's the maximum one. There are some that are retired as early as, some of it starts to drop off in 2027, et cetera. Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Steenberg.
Thank you, Mr. President, for having me.
Still on the sewer topic, Planner ran did some numbers for us on what it would cost the residents in order to take on the sewer debt. They gave us 4 options. None of them are actually good, but the first option would be to increase the sewer rate to cover operating loss. But basically would be currently charging $4.26 for your sewer. It'll go up to $5.47. That's just for the operating. That has nothing to do with the these projects. And then we'll have, in order to cover the sewer debt, we would have to raise the rates to actually $11.52 a unit. So you'll go from $4.26 a unit to $11.52 on your sewer bill, every unit of sewer bills. It's a 142% increase. Option two is to levy a tax on your property tax. It has to go be 7.3 mils. So I know a lot of people are concerned about how high the taxes are currently. At 7.3 mils, that will generate $570,000. That will cover basically your sewer debt, but still have your operating loss. The third option is to keep doing what we're doing now, which is reach into the general fund and the highway fund, to cover the shortfall. You're looking at that's going to last another 3 to 4 years before you run those funds solvent. And then the last option, option 4, is to do nothing and default on outstanding debts, basically made with Macomb County sewers. That's the 4 options that were presented to this council last month by Plant Moran. Basically, we got probably a $600,000 to $700,000 problem that we got to figure out how we pay for it. If anybody wants those numbers, Clerk Mack, can you provide copies to the residents on those, please?
Chief, there's something like that. Oh, no.
No, that's different. That's different. Office concerns. I met with the union last Wednesday. I was supposed to get an itemized list of their concerns. I did not receive that. So we'll not take any action on that, and we'll discuss it, I guess, at office meeting. Replace office server. There's only one quote for office server here. I know general practice for it to get 3 quotes. Prior purchasing ordinance. I understand there was an issue today. Chief, maybe you can elaborate that the computers went down because of the server or something?
No, sir, they didn't go down, but I've got no storage left within the system there, and it's a huge database, so I don't know if we're going to start losing information or what the process is there.
Actually, looking at the servers, I know that we received a paper with the 3 servers. We actually have, rather than 3 partitions, we have 8 partitions, and 3 of them have 113 gigabytes left. The original bill that we got from Tower suggested reallocating the partitions, which saved us that 10 grand. And, you know, looking at what we have versus what we're saying we have, we're not seeing the whole picture. So we want to make sure that we actually go and we get quotes from 3 different companies to repartition it, because if that company told us we need to replace our service, they need to be fired.
Well, they don't work for us, they're contracted, but
They need to be fired.
if we can get a motion to go out for 3 bids or place the office over,
I make a motion that we obtain 3 bids as far as to either replace or reconstruct our services.
can we get a second? Second, I trust. Question for you, Clerk Mack, you're in the office obviously more than me. What's the issue with the server?
There's no more room to save items.
You can buy it, they connect
All right.
So you need to talk to Mrs. Stewart has talked to our people that serve the tech guys. And also, someone from Dick Security checked it out too, and also agreed that we are out of,
Oh, definitely, we're out of space. We're out of space on those three partitions. Both, we have to be repartitions.
but it's 7 years old.
How many partitions?
There's a total of 8 partitions.
It's only showing 3 that are pretty much full.
Three are full.
Any other discussion on the motion?
Chief's not even on there.
Roll call, please.
So what's the motion again?
You're going to get recall or replace the server.
To replace the server?
I would have them do service first before you replace it.
Well, that, his motion was to replace the server. Let's go with the motion.
Right.
Trustee Davis,
Yes.
Trustee Hill,
No.
Trustee Podersky.
No.
Trustee Harris,
Yes.
Trustee Steer,
Yes.
Trustee Tidwell,
No.
President Kincaid.
Yes. Attorney Adams, water ordinance, I know Trustee Hill has some concerns.
Oh, yes, I don't know what's the purpose of, amending the water ordinance, and where did this come from and why?
Weren't you here?
At the last two meetings, we've given updates. There was a meeting concerning the water ordinance and converting the water ordinance to water billing with stricter enforcement on payments, including timelines. Village president and some others had a meeting on this and forwarded me their notes. I then was advised you at the last meeting that tonight I would take a stab at a suggested change to your current ordinance, and I gave you a memo potentially for you to consider and look at amending sections 18, 19, and 25 to accomplish a few things. Number one, to change your water billing to a monthly system, and number two, to tighten up the timeframes when people are considered delinquent on the payment of their water bills, and to tighten up the enforcement mechanisms. My significant input on this was from President Kincaid, Trustee Podersky, and most of all Brett Harris, who have done a lot of research on this. So I took a stab at a draft. It's for your consideration. It covers everything from how you had some concerns about how you address landlord tenants and who's paying the water bill. We found a section on that. We found a section to cover temporary vacancies of premises. We have a section changing your billing to monthly. We have a new due date. We have a new late date. And it's for your consideration. That's all the input that I received.
Any more comments on the draft? Trustee Passman?
Absolutely. I'm looking at billing frequency is great, payments wonderful, the tax roll collection. I have a problem with this. This is part under my duties, as well as the lien and calculations. So those two areas I would like removed from that, because as of right now, yep, C and D.
If the trustee can make that suggestion.
Oh, there's some other areas that in the, I'm sorry, I didn't get that to you.
Well, let's do this, because we obviously not gonna take action on this tonight. Just table it, can we get the suggestions to Attorney Davis?
I just want to hear more about what he had.
Okay.
But I think, Selena, you wanted C and D should maybe not be,
That's correct, because it is the treasurer's.
would be a different portion of responsibility.
Yeah, that's right.
Yes, can we please make sure we get the comments to the attorney prior to the meeting? Motion by Trustee Gershie, can I get a second?
Second.
All in favor of table?
Could I have a question? on that?
Discussion, I'm sorry.
If we're changing the ordinance and wherever it reflects, you saying, I think Selena's saying something is in her duties or something.
Treasurer response.
Then if it's a new ordinance and if it's something that's taken away something, maybe that's better, that the burden is not left on you. And I mean, we have a water superintendent, that we paying him pretty dearly, that those things should be left with him.
Well, actually, he shouldn't make the decision personally whose bill goes on their tax roll. And neither should the water department person. That's something that has to be done through or by the
Well,
treasurer.
that's done by ordinance, I think, anyway, but, I mean,
Yeah.
right.
Any other discussion on the motion to table? All in favor of tabling the water ordinance? Aye. Any opposed? Ayes have it. Next item on the agenda, resolution on community development project. I think that's why most of the people are here. Attorney Davis.
I'll give a brief explanation on this, and then I think there are representatives from Visual Services here who can answer your specific questions. You've been approached by your current service provider who does your collection and disposal of your type 2 municipal waste to potentially have you get involved in a host community agreement, which would be supportive of them constructing a second landfill here in Macomb County at the location that I've described in my report. A host community agreement is the first step of many steps that take place in the construction of a landfill in the state of Michigan. This process would have to go before the county for amendment of the county waste plan. This process would have to go before technical review committees at the MDEQ, state of Michigan offices. There would be many public hearings on that. But the process starts, and the infancy of the process begins with a community willing to work with a company like Rizzo towards this end. And in order to start that process, the law requires that there be a resolution of support by the local body wherein this facility would be governed. And under the agreement that has been proposed to you to pursue, there are many benefits to the community in terms of waste hauling, free waste hauling, free waste disposal, monies per ton that gets generated into the landfill, the community money by way of money going towards police services and fire services. There's lots of things in the host community agreement. In exchange, the host community agreement says that you work with this developer towards the end of getting a landfill in place. It doesn't guarantee that there'll be a landfill. You're not committing that there will be a landfill. You're only committing that if there is one and it's located here, you will receive these benefits. The benefits are extraordinary because the proposal is to get $1 per ton for any waste that is brought into this landfill. The landfill would probably start in year one at about 500,000 tons. It would ramp up close to 2 million tons per year, similar to other landfills in the area. So your revenues could approach significant dollars. The property at issue for this landfill is not geographically located entirely in the village of New Haven. The law does allow for you to enter into an Act 425 agreement with a corresponding community wherein you reach an agreement with the community who has that property and you work out a transaction for you to have jurisdiction over the development on their property. The second choice for that is to annex the property, which is another allowable process allowed by the law in this area, that you can annex the property into the village, make it part of your tax base, and go forward with this type of a development. So I've given you a proposed resolution, cover memo that I provided to you, had a couple of benefits that I would just like to highlight because I believe there are people here on this issue. The developer would be proposing to guarantee property values financially within 1,500 feet of the landfill. The village would maintain access and inspection rights with respect to all operations at this property. The compensation would be $1 per ton of waste received at the landfill for the life of the landfill, which is about 35 years. It would start at about $600,000 a year into your fund and could get as high as $3 million per year. If they build a corresponding transfer station in your community, you would get another 25 cents per ton. You would get an advance against that money of $750,000 earlier on in the process. There would be payments to the sheriff to offset police issues. There would be free waste collection and disposal services for 10 years. I think the draft's 5, but I think that, we could probably talk about 10 on that. And you would have a right to inspect the books and records to make sure that you're being fairly compensated. And there's a hiring preference for this new development in your community for New Haven residents. Again, the process for developing a landfill in the state of Michigan begins with the all-important issue of a community by resolution agreeing to be supportive of the process and to work with the developer towards the end of a landfill. This is a type 2 only landfill. This is not anything beyond type 2. This landfill would only be able to receive the type of residential waste that you put out in your yard on a weekly basis. No other waste, no other specialized waste, no other types of liquids and or hazardous or contaminated waste. Residential waste only.
Mr. Rizzo, you want to speak on this matter, or is there any questions of Mr. Hu? Well, real quick, because there seems to be some things misconstrued. The landfill will actually be in Lennox Township, but I don't know if who's been here for 20, 30 years. Well, let's say it's 3/4 of it. Only one side. You go to part 24 is actually in the village. Part 24. What happens? What the options are is basically enter into a 425 agreement, which basically will give Lennox Township consideration for allowing us to have the host agreement. Lennox Township currently has a 425 with Richmond for the Department of 32 in Gratiot. If Lennox chooses to not go that route, we can annex the property, which basically take the property without consideration. We just got done talking about 15 minutes ago about raising everyone's taxes, debt services, to cover a $600,000 bill. The viable option, to be honest with you, I would like to see this person generate revenue, so we don't have to tax our residents out of homes. I unfortunately see residents that, can't afford their water bills and have to shut off the water, can't afford to keep their houses. I mean, you can go on any of these subdivisions and see all the foreclosures that you deal with on a daily basis. So the option before us is to look at options and alternatives that we don't have to tax our residents. I understand there's a stigma that goes along with this, but you have to understand right now there's probably $3 million annually that goes right down our street, and not one penny comes to this community. Not one dime from waste management comes to this community. You have an option here I look at it this way, we take some property from another community and brings value to our community that doesn't affect Main Street, doesn't affect the subdivisions, it doesn't change any of the logistics of our community. I'll let the council, I see Trustee Kersey has hands up, ask questions of the Mr. Huth and Mr. Rizzo, and they can possibly answer those. And then I'll let a couple of the residents speak to them. Trustee Kersey.
So it's good evening, everybody. Rob Booth and Chuck Rizzo. I'm a lawyer working with Chuck today. It's a format, you'll present questions to us and then we respond.
Yes.
Okay. Trustee Kersey.
My first question is, what is the difference between what you're proposing for the landfill as to what Pine Tree Acres started with and their lawsuit in Baker?
Well, the major difference is that was 30 years ago, so the regulations today are much more stricter. Everything that you do today is engineered, and there's a lot of, before anything is even constructed, there's engineering drawings that are developed. It costs quite a bit of money to develop. The MDEQ approves it, and then those things are implemented. And a lot of the things that have occurred over the last 30 years are now all regulated and part of the permitting process.
I think it's fair to say that this landfill will start where the other one was forced to get to, because there was issues and there was changes made there, but now because of the law regulating it and the process, this is going to be in a spot that doesn't have to get to that part.
Okay, so what you're saying, Ms. Tom, correct me if I'm wrong, is that where the lawsuit was and they had corrections to do with that, none of that will happen with all the evaporating gas and everything that was going on?
That's correct.
Okay. Okay, one more.
Cliff.
There's an alternative energy program through the high school, and we are working with high school students from freshmen through seniors, and the kids are being able to earn their associate's degree in alternative energy. Would you be willing to work with the high school and do a co-op program to help them towards their associate's degrees?
Absolutely.
Okay, would it be something you'd be open to get Dr. Wonderlich with, the superintendent?
Yes.
And just one more point on that. I don't get paid unless I throw in points, so I have to butt in occasionally. As the landfill gets underway, there's new alternatives for energy by the compacting, just by the natural process of the waste being compacting and aging. So what will happen is that energy will be able to be collected and used for purposes to heat homes or sell. So it would be ideal for students in this area to be involved with that process in a project that's right so close by. So it's a good fit.
Okay, can you call Dr. Wonderlich?
Dr. Miller? Sure.
Any other questions from trustees? Trustee Hill.
I see you have a number of lots. I see 5 through 24, 1, 2, 3, and 4. Middle is future lots. And the total price you're looking at for the village is 6.5 million. How much ton go into each lot?
No, you're looking at, what you're looking at
What is
is,
this 6.5?
so that's the property value that they purchased money.
Okay, so how much money are we talking about for each lot? How much ton of waste go into each one of these lots?
Well, it would be expected that the life of the landfill would be about 30 years.
Okay, so how much waste would go into, let's say, one lot in tons?
Space.
You know, the way it's,
Chuck, I think what trustee Hill's looking at, breakdown.
I just want to get an estimate of exactly how much ton will be done in one lot.
Just so that the lots are the same
They're not.
size. So pick a lot.
Doesn't matter.
Okay.
I would say in total, the original amount is around 300 and I believe 16 acres. So we're looking at, in that area, we're under about 30 million tons, correct?
Okay. Over how long will this, how many years?
Most likely it's 15 to 20 years, and then that's why there's expansion property.
And can you make any guarantees that property value will not depreciate in this community based on a landfill getting it back up?
Yeah, we've got a provision that says any properties that are within a certain amount of 1,500 feet, we will guarantee the value by paying 125% of the appraised value.
So you're gonna pay their appraised value?
Quiet, please. Go ahead.
Yes, that's correct.
So if your house appreciates, they're willing to pay 125% of the market value of your house. If it's within 1,500 feet of that landfill.
Okay, and then what about the?
The other homes that are
Because even
outside
though
of
those
1,500.
homes, I'm looking at it like this, even though those homes are only within a certain 1,500 feet, but how would that affect those other homes that's not within 1,500 feet?
What I think
Will
is,
those homes depreciate in value as well?
what I think you're gonna see benefits wise is the earlier question, trustee Hill, was what's the capacity of the landfill? And you talked about, well, it's based on 30 million tons. That's $30 million that would come into the community. And it would seem to me logical to say the value of one's home takes into account its tax burden. And your tax burden is going to go substantially down if you're fortunate enough to have a home benefiting from this host-community agreement. So rather than, as you heard earlier, talk about the Macomb County intercepting different bills, that has to be affecting the tax values now. I think anybody that's considering a home here would say, I could pay X for it, but I didn't realize I'm going to have a continuing burden every year to pay for this interceptor. What this project will do, it will take out that negative that these folks could be facing now, and instead replace it with a positive. And the positive, they can do things like help your education, have a community house, have a community greenhouse, all these things that can come to your community for something that's primarily located somewhere else. I think you're going to find it beneficial.
I understand that, but I'm still concerned about the depreciation of homes that's outside that 1,500, because I get what you're saying about the money coming in and the revenue will us thinking as far as what President Kincaid looked at, one of the options is to offset the cost for our water bills and the sewer, which is like the 140%. However, even though you will be offsetting that debt, we still have a concern with depreciation of other properties within the community. Because when the real estate, because I call a real estate agent and I put these questions to them, because I want to know for the residents here, their own homes, how would this affect the property? And what they said to me was, when you have a landfill in your backyard, basically, they look at that and it's harder for them to sell those homes. Regardless of whether or not, you're going to pay that portion of it for those people within 1,500 feet, you still have to sell a house.
And I'm just actually being fair with you and to the people here, that there is already a landfill in the area.
I mean,
Yeah.
32.
No, it's at,
It's going to be across the
that's the thing is it's neighboring the other landfill. So it's literally, you could throw a baseball from one to the other. So it's not necessarily going into a new area. So it's not going to, it's not from that standpoint going to affect someone's home because there's already one there.
So we just expanded upon what's already there.
The current landfill has 90 years, and it's going to get much bigger than it is, waste management.
Trustee Anderson.
I did have a couple of concerns about medical waste.
Is that going to be allowed?
No, that's not allowed.
Okay. And what about, are you going to be subcontracting? Because I know Canada, the trucks that come in from Canada, they just come in and dump. So how would you make it safer for the residents?
Well, one thing that we have is we have service agreements. We would have service agreements for all the customers that come in there, and the agreement will mirror the regulations that we have in the landfill, meaning there's only certain materials that are allowed in, and none of it is hazardous waste. So if any of those people bring in hazardous waste, we have detections at the gate, as well as, our people are trained to look for that. So if anything like that occurs, it gets reloaded and that person gets kicked off the site.
So are you saying that per dump it's monitored, per truck that comes in, the dump is monitored?
Yes, that's correct.
The landfill's at risk if it takes these types of materials, so it has to do everything possible to keep it out.
In the regulators, the people from MDQ are always out monitoring those type of things as well.
Also with the transportation, it's going to be an increase of trucks coming into the community, which means more wear and tear on our roads. So how is that going to be also? Who's going to pay for that additional?
Our road, they come down Gratiot. Gratiot is not our road.
But it's crossover.
No, NDOT, that's Gratiot. Gratiot is not ours. No, there won't be no trucks coming through Main Street. You'll have the same traffic flow that you have currently with what comes through, to the Pantry down Gratiot. As far as offsetting, that'll be to the county and state highway that deals with, Gratiot. As far as coming through our local roads, obviously it'll be the same restrictions that currently apply. There should be no trucks besides the ones that pick up trash in the community that come through the roads. The route should be between 94, Gratiot, and it's on 28. So there shouldn't be a truck come through your subdivision
How much of the stuff, but you know, if there's.
You should be on the main street.
There's some construction involved, they will be going on there.
I kind of had something, where were you gonna be going in at, off of?
We would be at the approach end, there would be an extra turn lane added, and then the approach would come off of Gratiot. There'd be a long road that comes into the property to make sure the truck traffic gets off of Gratiot and gets onto the secondary road.
Okay, so you're talking, because I was thinking of, like, if you had an extra access somewhere in a passing lane, because like in front of Decorah Park, how everybody passes on the shoulder, it was just a thought to do it on when everybody's going on southbound Gratiot, to put it somewhere on that. I don't know if that was MDOT or.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Yeah, we could look at that. One thing too, coming from that direction, I think you're saying coming from the north going south.
Yeah,
There would be no truck traffic from us or anybody coming that way because
no,
it's
I'm
on.
just thinking of any kind of your trucks turning in and stopping traffic that way.
Yeah, we would, if we did, we could account for having an extra pass lane there.
Okay.
But the traffic flow is really is gonna come from the south
Okay.
because St. Clair County's closed, they have a closed,
Landfill.
Lane.
yeah, so no traffic's coming from that way.
Okay.
And you're not allowed to go through, I think, Richmond City anymore.
Okay.
Any other questions? Trustee here.
I just had one since it was guaranteeing, and I actually haven't looked at the whole packet, but I was looking at your employees. You're hiring 25 to 40 employees.
Yes,
Is there any way we can make sure that at least 10 of those are from the village of New Haven?
It's spelled out in the agreement that the preference goes to New Haven residents first that are qualified, so absolutely that should be an opportunity for New Haven residents.
We've heard that one before too.
That's
So
all.
if we have qualified residents, they get first preference.
They do.
Yeah, no, she's not to be at work.
What's that?
That no, she's not to be at work, walk there.
I just want to say, we've done this before, and they said they were going to hire Latham residents, and we didn't get what we asked for.
Why you said, like, put it in writing?
I just want the other options on the table, than just this, simply look at it, and look at it. Include the sell of, try to build homes, everything that you can do. I think we need more than just this one option to offset.
We don't own the land.
I understand that, but we are the one that make the decision whether or
Are
not
you-
that land's going to be utilized.
I'll give you just give you a quick synopsis, and I know every resident here is concerned about their taxes. Our tax roll for this year is gonna bring in $1,259,748.37. So that's taxing every business in this village, every resident, that's how much we're gonna bring into the village, 1.2 million. You're gonna add something from, in Lennox Township, that's gonna bring in on annual $1.53 million. So what they bring to whatever you wanna call it, the landfill, is gonna be double what you bring for taxing every business in this community. So, just be realistic, you're not gonna find another option that's gonna bring in that kind of revenue. I mean, I don't care how many more houses you put up, how many, you may put up business on Roselle, from a tax perspective, you're not gonna find that kind of revenue. I mean, you're looking at the sewer debt that happens to the residents, the fire department, they're broke at the end of this year. You have to generate revenue. I mean, we can keep discussing and look at other options or terms, but while you're talking and discussing, money is just slowly going out the door. We have to make decisions. Yeah, then I'll let the public speak in one moment. Go ahead, Trustee President.
Being that you're willing to pay us up front, is that once we get through all of the little meetings, we can go down and everything else, or is this something where we take the money from you and then there's no landfill, we're gonna have to pay back?
Yeah, the money's not paid until everything's approved. Yeah. But one thing we're willing to do though is enhance the recycling program that they have immediately deliver free 65-gallon recycling containers, and develop a rewards program. So I mean, that's gonna happen in either event.
All right, we're gonna start with, I think, 3 residents. Ms. Higgins, Mr. Pet's back there, and Mrs. Bodowski. Ms. Higgins, come to the podium, please.
Good afternoon. I have just a couple of questions. Now, we've heard of all the pros. If there were no drawbacks, everybody would be begging for one, so what's the drawbacks?
It stinks.
Yeah.
I think that the number one drawback is just kind of what you see with kind of a NIMBY feeling. That, yeah, not in my backyard, but it would be good to have another landfill. So, you know, Oakland County has 2, Wayne County has 5, Macomb County has 1. And I think it's often just a sentiment that we don't know what it brings in the stigma of it. But I think one positive thing you have here is there already is a landfill here. It's going to grow, and it could actually, you know, theoretically go to this site if you don't jump on this opportunity. So, well, that's a negative for some people. I don't think it ends up being a negative for your community.
Is this the same type of thing that they call a compost?
No.
That's not the same situation?
Right. A compost would be, and Chuck will correct me if I'm wrong, but like where yard waste comes and it sits, and what happens in the issues with compost is it sits and it creates a terrible odor. It's not very well regulated. Landfills are more regulated, so you don't have that.
So you're not gonna have that horrific odor?
Yes.
So that grass is not
Yeah.
allowed.
Compost. I have one more question.
Final question.
Exactly where is it gonna be located?
2720 tomorrow, there's your map. Can you, there's your map?
And Gratiot?
Correct. 20 tomorrow.
East or west?
Mr. Petts, go, you can answer your question from there, sir.
Okay. 2728 Mile Road. I'm on 26 in Gratiot. I open up my window under the summertime, I can smell that stuff. What are you guaranteeing me if I don't smell it? This the landfill, when you fill stuff in the landfill, burn it, everything else.
Bad smell.
They do have a bad smell. What's your guarantee if I don't smell it when I don't smell it?
Under the host community agreement that's been proposed by Rizzo, the village is not giving up its rights with respect to taking legal action against the landfill for odors, the same way that the Lennox folks had to take action against the.
I'm only 2 miles away, okay? But the problem is, if the wind comes and I open up a window,
The second thing goes to Mr. Rizzo's earlier comments. If you track, since 1980, the regulations on the construction of a new landfill in Michigan and the daily requirements are about 100 times different than they were when Pine Tree Acres was built. So the mechanisms in place now are far more superior and do control odors. And those mechanisms are in place on the construction as opposed to waiting for lawsuits.
then what about my house? Will my house go up in value or will it go down?
Down.
That means I would pay so much money and I still have to pay more taxes because I lost.
If you're saying you already have an odor,
That one up and that's
No, let him speak.
I just want to start, you already got when I pass by there, all right, there is odor. I can smell an odor when I go from 26 to 29, there is an odor there. What are they going to do about that? If we put one in our building, in our area, what are they going to help us out?
What you have currently is Pine Tree Acre, that you're saying you smell an odor from.
Right.
So your question is,
If we put one on 26 or 27, 28 Mile Road, all right, you're gonna still smell it. Because you know, you can't block the fumes.
so your question is how do they regulate this?
Right.
Can you answer that, Mr. Rizzo?
They don't. They can't.
Yeah, what's done now is there's first of all, there's daily cover. The way it's constructed is different. We also have deodorizers that are along the perimeter, and that's all built in at the onset.
But the problem is on 29, you're still burning gas over there.
That's not
But
good.
that's not us.
That's waste management,
Yeah,
that's not
that
us.
has nothing to do with us.
Last
You're
question.
not doing it, right?
No, that's waste management.
No.
Last question, Ms. Minkowski.
so much that I didn't know before. So something like that might be beneficial for this community to learn. You were there, Jamie, there were quite a few people in the audience that were there too. And I learned so much that I did not know. I was very impressed.
Get ready to
But it
step.
was my understanding at that meeting, and maybe Mr. Booth or Mr. Davis can confirm this, that as citizens of this country in general, we really don't have rights as far as where landfills can be put. That, you know, that's, the Canadian garbage thing came up, and often this garbage comes into our country, and that's because the Canadians will listen to their citizens, and, you know, you say, I don't want it here, and you say, I don't want it there, so they choose to sell their garbage to the States.
Right.
So, can you confirm that that is a reality for us, that might educate us, and that this resolution is really more of a formality, and it's showing that we're gonna be good neighbors about it, and we wanna take every advantage that we can get out of it, being that in reality, we don't have a choice of where it goes. Is that accurate?
Yeah, let me address both of your issues.
Quiet, please.
The reason that you have a lot of Canadian waste coming to Pine Tree Acres is because Waste Management over time made a decision to cut the rate. The folks in Canada get to dump at Pine Tree Acres cheaper than the folks in Macomb County. Mr. Rizzo has indicated that he will not exclude Canadian waste, but in Canadian waste in this landfill will have to pay market or market plus price. So that's the first issue. The reason you got the influx of Canadian waste is because it's half the price. And that, I think, is fundamentally incorrect. Number two, your issue about citing is the concept of preemption under the law. And the way preemption works is that there are certain things that have to happen in the United States. Landfills are one of them. Therefore, the law preempts those fields of occupation, meaning that the state takes over and decides if a landfill is going to go and where it's going to go. Now, they'll listen to the communities and they'll have public hearings, but with respect to local zoning and local regulations and local codes, they'll respect them all with respect to enforcement. But the actual siting of the landfill is preempted. There are certain things that the federal law preempts, where the field of occupation requires federal control. Aviation is one of them. You wouldn't want every local community controlling the airspace. So the feds do it. So yes, you're correct. Where a landfill goes is ultimately decided by the state of Michigan. But as I said at the beginning, the first step is to have a host community who's willing to support the development of the landfill in exchange for benefits. And the state recognizes those contractual benefits and believes in those contractual benefits. Basically this, if you're gonna support the development of a landfill in your community, you're gonna be rewarded.
Okay, thank you.
All right, table, go ahead.
Attorney Davis, with this resolution, now this is just to, would you to start and look at this as happening?
You're only resolving certain things. You're resolving that you would execute the host community agreement and that you would allow the president and to report to you every month the status. It would become a standard agenda item. And that you would be agreeing to work with this entity towards the development of this landfill. So if the state of Michigan said, are you in agreement with having the land, your answer is going to be yes. Will you support it at meetings? Yes. Will you give up your rights to critique what they're doing? No.
So that to go back.
Every month will come back.
Every month. And I would suggest to you that this is most likely an 18-month to 2-year process. But it has to start at some point now.
Trustee Davis.
I just have a quick question. So, we're looking at starting the landfill process. But once we get through that, the actual starting of the landfill will actually start approximately where you will start the dumping and everything will start approximately almost across the street from where Pine Tree is, correct? Is that what we're looking at?
Yes, that is correct.
Okay, so then you're not looking at starting to dump it like across the street from Meadow Creek, the manufactured home community that's open, correct?
That's correct.
Okay, so you're looking at actually starting it over there and then having like a buffer zone.
Yes.
So that community and everything else there.
Yes.
No more questions from the audience. I'll entertain a motion to enter into or pass a resolution to explore the option of a host community agreement. To execute a resolution for the host community agreement. Can I get a motion?
I make a motion that we execute a host community agreement with the Rizzo and state of Michigan to look into options moving forward with this process.
Can I get a second? I'll second it. Roll call, Clerk Mack, please.
Trustee Davis,
Yes.
trustee Harris,
Yes.
trustee Steer,
Yes.
trustee Poderski,
Yes.
trustee Tidwell,
No.
trustee Hill, President Kincaid.
Yes. Next item on the agenda.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Actually, what do you?
I mean, I just wanted to ask, I just think a lot of people might want to ask a question. I know I have a question for Jeremy Davis and Attorney Robert Davis in reference to what you guys just did. And, my thing is that you guys are doing this off of Gratiot, is that correct? Where is this landfill going to be? That's what I'm trying to find out.
There's a map, trustee Burns, you give her a map.
Where is it, 27 miles? 27, 28? So that's very close to all these homes, Amherst, and stuff like that, would you spell the older,
I'm not, I'm good.
I mean, that's all right, I'm just asking a question, I just want to know.
Yeah.
And what did you guys just approve?
Just a resolution.
What is the resolution required about? I'm just asking, I don't understand, what is the resolution about? Who gets to do what?
And it doesn't, what it means is basically we'll look at exploring going forth. That's all the resolution says.
So it's saying moving forward, so basically saying that someone is gonna be able to sit down and talk about this landfill. The landfill is not there yet, basically, right? So you're gonna have to have the residents be able to come in and talk.
If you was here with Ms. McCoskey, you know what?
I'm just asking.
No.
I just want to know.
Yeah.
I just want to.
I know you guys, see you on the baseball game.
That's why I'm asking.
All right.
This is why I'm here.
Attorney Davis, tax petition. Yeah.
Can I stand up and say something else?
I call from the floor. I call from the floor.
You call the floor?
Yes, yes you can, ma'am.
Oh, man, I just think that.
I don't know, let's get back to handle the business. Tax appeal, Attorney Davis.
For purposes of an update, which was requested by,
Quiet, please. Go ahead, Attorney Davis.
requested by trustee Harrison and Poderski at the last meeting. There's no action required. We filed.
In the back, quiet, please.
This is from
We've done a couple.
Go ahead, Attorney Davis.
In accordance with the filing deadline, we timely filed a tax appeal to get the taxes lowered on this building.
Mr. Harris, can you give those to Mr. Dover to pass out so you can have a seat at the table, please? Mr. Harris, can you have a seat at the table so we can continue with our meeting? Go for it, please.
There's a statutory time date on when you have to file a tax appeal.
Clerk, please, quiet. If you want to discuss the map, can you do it quietly, please, so we can finish the business?
As I was starting to say, there's a statutory deadline for the time that you file tax appeals relating to commercial properties in Michigan. We, at your direction, timely filed a tax petition challenging the taxable value of this building. This building is currently being taxed at about $2.76 million in taxable value. We filed a petition trying to get the taxable value of this property set closer to 1.2 to 1.3 million, so that A, the value would be more reasonable, and B, you would have a set tax burden with respect to this building that's lower than where you're at now. The update is that that was timely filed. Ironically, Lennox Township is on the other end of that case. Their assessor wants to meet, and I told you if we had any meetings, we would report back to you. Your valuation report will not be due until about mid-November of this year. If we're able to reach a compromise with the township, and I'm able to bring that back to you, you may be in a position to save the $7,000 or $8,000 on the valuation report. At the next meeting, I'll bring you the three quotes. They range from $6,800 to about $8,000 to do that report. But I'll be encouraging you not to incur that expense until it's time under the scheduling order. Your tax appeal trial probably won't happen for about 1.5 years. So you're well within your time frames. If we can get the taxable value by agreement down to 1.2, 1.3, I'll bring those figures back to you in a closed session and we'll discuss that strategy.
Next item.
I have a question.
I'm sorry.
You said 1.5 years?
Until your trial date.
Before we can even get in there?
No. Mr. Chair, you understand, there's preliminary discussions and negotiating, but the actual trial date.
But, so it's gonna be trial date, so we're never getting the relief on the building for probably 2 years.
But Brett, can I respond to that real quick? If, as you're pending before the tax tribunal and years go by, you add those years in and you get reimbursed.
Okay, that was
With interest.
It goes back from the final date.
from the,
And you get it with interest.
Next one, Attorney Davis.
At the last meeting, you had, or I had raised with you by memo, the situation with,
Once again, quiet please in the back.
situation with PNC Bank and the garnishment. Without having to go back through that whole story, I know you've read my report on that. Essentially, at this point, it might be wise for this board to consider allowing us to pursue the return of those funds. In the state of Michigan, there's a state law that says a municipality cannot be garnished. You had a debt that was incurred by Mr. Creighton. Mr. Creighton didn't pay one of his bills.
Yeah.
Mr. Creighton was employed by you. They filed a garnishment against you, and it ended up that the bank started to pursue us for the garnishment. The bank became a garnishee defendant because they didn't respond to the garnishment served on them. The bank paid off the bill and then sucked it out of your account. And it was about $16,000 and they shouldn't have done it.
Plus cost.
He's looking for a motion to pursue the return of that money.
so who do we go after, the bank?
PNC.
So move.
Second.
Let's get a roll call. We want to initiate possible litigation in order to recover the $16,000 that was garnished from Mr. Creighton's.
13.
It's 13 something.
Yeah.
That would cost someone that came.
We got a motion.
Now,
I'm not Trustee Taylor, I'm not Trustee Davis. What?
what is it gonna cost us to do a litigation to get the to recoup the $16,000?
Attorney Davis.
Is it worth it?
Well, I can tell you, we have to do it because that's why our 2012 audit hasn't been approved. They want to, instead of just want to approve, they don't know what we're going to do about that. So that's why we haven't had that.
Why,
I will.
why aren't they going after?
Quiet, please!
About
No, put your hand down.
Why?
you're gonna prepare an email in regards to what it would take, what
Yeah,
it
I'll
That's
prepare a
in your
budget
mouth.
for each step.
Ms. Higgins, please.
We'll do litigation.
All right, look at your email back. Trustee Davis. Quiet, please! Step outside. Don't you dare. Have a seat.
On that,
Have a seat, please. Maybe. Go ahead, Nick.
I did not.
Officer, can you come forward, please? Can we, we're having an issue of trying to maintain business here because we have some disorder. Can we try to maintain that in the audience, please, sir?
Give that guy a hand.
It's a public meeting, so I'm trying to close the meeting. So
All right, so he doesn't want to close the meeting. If everybody can just let them do their thing, and you don't have to involve the sheriff's office. It's simple. I don't think anybody wants to go to jail over a bill of fee.
Question, on this, on the actual, Robert Creighton check, the check that was drawn, it was a certified check, correct? That's what the was said in the audit, why have we not requested a copy of that certified check?
We have,
We have?
yes, I can show you that the students, we do not have that.
Okay.
Or cannot at this point produce it.
this has been going on since 2010. Now we have a motion on the table. Can we get a vote on the motion?
I think so.
We report it now. Can we get a roll call on the motion, please?
Trustee Steer,
Yes.
trustee Hill,
Motion
trustee,
to,
Pursue that.
We can't even find the money. I mean, where's the cashier check?
Going after the bank.
that's what we want to PNC Bank.
Did anybody ever see the cashier check? So you going after your bank?
PNC.
Yes.
She said yes, for that.
trustee Harris,
Yes.
trustee Poderski,
Yes.
trustee Tidwell,
Yes.
trustee Davis,
Yes.
President Kincaid.
Yes. Approval for payment of bills, $109,096.04. Trustee Poderski.
First of all, this grand trunk is back on the internet.
Wait a minute,
That's the gates at the, you want to take that off?
Well, we took it off.
Hold that to finish, please. Trustee Murphy, go ahead.
We took it off in June. We were supposed to get an explanation of what happened and what was the railroad's explanation for this bill, and we haven't seen anything on it. So why should we pay a bill when we don't know why we're paying it?
I gave you all the information last month about the chargeback, where they could go back 5 years and charge
And
us.
we were supposed to have contact with them regarding
I
that.
have
That's
had
why-
contact with them.
And we didn't get.
They-
I'm-
Okay, there we go. Give me a dollar amount. Do you want to remove the bills?
And not to be returned, council to the result.
Well, Jamie was gonna meet with them or so, and then he's gonna come back and report back to council.
What it is a law change, and the conversation was meeting with the state rep concerning the change. It used to be like $300, now it's like $4,000, which is astronomical. Would you accept our friendly amendment, not come back until?
Yes.
Okay,
Yes,
give me the dollar amount.
I'm trying.
We want to take Grand Trunk Western bill for $4,980 out, and the other maintenance of 27 Marlboro Signal for $3,956. So our new total is what? Somebody got a calculator. $109,096.04. Minus $4,980.
Was never returned.
You never got the check back?
There was
$160,000.04.
Our new total, Bill,
There was a second check that went to Advanced Microfilm, and during the check shuffle, it did not come back to me.
This is a duplicate.
I see it, well, it looks like,
205216.
yeah, there was another 1,000 something. Clerk Mack, have we ever received CDs from them,
From who?
from Advanced Microfilm?
I haven't done anything.
So you've never received any of the CDs with our information on it, but we've paid the company $28,000?
That's what the fire, police
That's
department.
the police.
Police department?
I don't know any more.
Okay.
Our new total for people that keep track. Go ahead.
These, Treasurer Gatsby?
Yep.
Was this one of the checks that was a duplicate from that one?
No, it wasn't. When it was originally presented to me, there were.
Steve, you gonna pull the Advanced Microfilm, sir?
check.
I just got this at the table, so I'm allowed to ask questions.
It was a $4,000 check. And then when it came back to me, they broke them apart, but I didn't get the second check. So I don't know what happened to it. We need to make sure that we're actually getting the.
Okay, I'm pulling that one too. In the amount of $98,136.93.
Can you say that again, please? For the
$98,136.93.
Can we get a motion to pay the bills in that amount?
So moved.
Can we get a second? Roll call, please.
Trustee Steer. Trustee Hill.
No.
Trustee Davis.
Yes.
Trustee Harris.
Yes.
Trustee Tidwell.
Yes.
Trustee Poderski.
No.
President Kincaid. President.
Yeah, I heard it the first time. Yes. Clerk's items?
Agenda items are due on the 6th for August 13th meeting. And you allocated $300 for the clerk's class. And then the total was $374.15. And I want to make that amended record that we need to amend the allocation.
So we need a motion to amend the clerk's conference expenses for $74.15.
Yes.
Can we get a motion, please?
So moved.
Let's get a roll call on this, please.
Trustee Poderski.
No.
Trustee Hill. Trustee Steer.
Yes.
Trustee Tidwell.
No.
Trustee Davis.
Yes.
Trustee Harris.
Yes.
President Kincaid.
Yes. Treasurer's report, Treasurer Pavlov.
Currently, in our accounts, we have $3,340,280.09. You want to repeat that again? We have $3,340,280.09 as of June 30th, 2013.
Remember when $500,000 was transferred?
Yes.
Is there enough money to put it back?
No, currently our general pool is at about $530,000. We did transfer that money in, and as of June 30th, we only have $518,000. How does council want me to start paying that money back? Do we want, once the dollar amount hits, like, say, $600,000, do we want it to draw back and start putting it back into that account?
Your
I need to
suggestion.
make that decision so I can start removing the money back if I want to move.
This would be my suggestion, I know we've done this in the past. You're probably not gonna better replenish that until after tax start collected. And that's probably when, yeah, if you look at probably September, when tax rolls are due, that's probably gonna be the hardest option.
Oh, I do have another comment.
hold on, before you get the comments, let's adopt the treasurer's report and then I'll let you make a comment.
Do you have a copy of the treasury report?
Yeah,
Right
tear
here.
it down.
Do I have it now?
I didn't get one either.
Oh.
There's a whole book down there.
Can we get a motion to file and accept the treasurer's report as presented?
So moved.
Can I get a second? Can I get a roll call on this, clerk Matt?
Trustee Harris.
Yes.
Trustee Tidwell.
Yes.
Trustee Poderski.
Yes.
Trustee Hill.
Yes.
Trustee Steer.
Yes.
Trustee Davis.
Yes.
President Kincaid.
Yes.
Okay, also, Clerk Mack, I would like to put on the record, word for word, Treasurer Passano did not view nor certify the tax roll before it went out, or was given the special assessment information to be able to certify that prior to placing it on people's tax rolls.
Can you
You
write
have it
it?
in writing?
Put it in writing and give it to
Right.
master plan.
President Kincaid approved that, so you need to speak to him on that.
Oh, master plan, please.
I make a motion to table this, please.
Can we get a second?
Second.
Can we make a motion and not bring it back to September?
When you table, you can table to a date specific.
So we're gonna table this in September.
Can everybody please?
Can you clerk back?
Lay it aside.
I'm
till
sorry, lay it
September.
aside, I'm
No,
sorry.
we have to postpone.
Postpone it to.
Yeah. Lay it aside, all right.
Lay it aside till
No,
September.
postpone.
Postpone till September, please.
Thank you.
Lay on the table.
All right. So, all in favor of postponing this until September?
Lay on the table.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? The ayes have it. Trustee Harris, paving and basketball court at Haven Ridge Park.
Okay, but before we go to that, can I ask you to, for a the planning commission, they need to do something with the Parks and Recreation plan. I know they didn't meet last month.
Right.
Something needs to happen with that.
We need to adopt a recreation plan.
Right. The paving, well, at the last meeting, you guys wanted three quotes of what what was compatible to doing the, to tear and fix the cracks and put back in. So there's the three proposals in front of you. It's coming out of 4M was the lowest at 14,015. I'm sorry, 14,157. Peak was 17,800, and total was 14,750.
You remember last month we've been discussing this Haven Ridge Park for a minute. We had quotes, but they weren't comparable. I think Trustee Davis asked us to get comparable quotes for that. I think the cheapest quote was 14,157. I don't know what the pleasure of the council is, but I know the DPW already marked that off, and kids still are playing out there, and legitimately somebody is going to get hurt at that park. I'll have to ask Attorney Davis what our liability would be, because we do have it marked off as, not to play on it, but kids obviously aren't heeding that warning. I mean, there was caution tape up there, I know, but they took that down. That was just orange signs.
They get hurt and then they take the sign.
How long would it take to get them?
Just give them a call, and
Where is the word?
I know Peak was the highest, but Peak was doing some tennis courts in the area, but they were the highest.
Okay, that's all. 14,157. Yeah, he's exactly. You can mark up. Let's get a motion, and then we'll entertain questions. I think the cheapest quote is 14,157, Mr. Harris?
Yes.
That's the cheapest. I think the highest is total asphalt at 28,450.
No, that 28,000 was no, go to the 14.
Oh, 14.
The 28 was if we did
3 inches.
a 3 inch, everyone else was at the 2 inch.
Okay. So, I'll entertain a motion, and then we have discussion on the motion, to resurface the basketball court at Haven Ridge Park. According to Attorney Davis, we still have liability even though it's marked off as with caution tape and not be played on.
I move that we take the lowest bid at $14,157.
Can we get a second?
Second.
Second by trustee Taylor. Discussion on the motion only.
Okay, where's?
Hold on. Trustee Percy,
That the month, okay.
let trustee Percy ask a question, then we'll go from
General
there.
fund.
That was my question.
General fund.
It's coming out of
Because we
general
don't have
fund?
anything in Parks and Recs. If you put some, if you guys gotta understand, for Parks and Recs, it's gonna come out of the general fund anyway.
Allocated.
Wait, give me the money.
The
I'm sorry,
$8,000.
are we done?
No, but
Right. So actually, we would be taking 6,000 or so roughly.
No, what he's saying, trustee Tidwell, if you got 20,000, 8,000 in Parks and Rec, it still come out general fund.
all of it comes.
Yeah, it's all come out general fund. I'm sorry, trustee Percy, you finished.
But when you allocate the money you're going to use, you gotta allocate which fund you're taking it out of, not just general fund.
You can take it out of general
I
fund.
understand that part, you can, if you don't have enough in that account, but you have to say which account you're taking out of. Now, is the Parks and Rec fund less than the amount that you're requesting?
Yes.
How much do we have?
Wait
in
till I get
Parks
to the
and Rec?
signs.
How much do we have in Parks and Rec?
8,000.
8,000? Okay, can you take a friendly amendment to allocate 8,000 out of Parks and Rec and reallocate 5,000 from the general fund into the Parks and Rec to cover the additional amount?
Later down here is the signs are next, and that was gonna do that out of Parks and Rec.
No, you gotta be.
Well, it won't be nothing in Parks and Rec at that point.
Well, how much is the sign?
Hold on, let's take it before we ask. You step for friendly amendment?
Yes.
Okay, yes,
Whatever
sir.
it takes to get it done.
Yes, please. All right, roll call,
Take the
please.
8,000 out of the general fund.
Do you have another
I mean,
question?
8,000 out of Parks and Rec.
I'm sorry, trustee Percy.
What I was asking is it
Quiet, please. Trustee Percy.
Is it an even $8,000 in Parks and Rec?
That's, I don't know how much money is it, though, so
Yeah, and
he's saying it's 8,000, I'm taking the word.
it's, no, sir.
Okay, what I'm just saying is, can you make the friendly amendment for $5,157 on the general fund? $6,157, just in case there's only $8,000 total in there.
Okay,
We got that one.
you allocate 8,000 from Parks and Rec and reallocating from the general fund $6,157.
To get us $14,000.
That's okay with you, trustee Harris?
Whatever you get done, you say, yes.
Yes.
Roll call, please.
Thank you for the addition, correction.
Trustee Steer. Trustee Poderski.
Yes.
Trustee Tidwell.
Yes.
Trustee Davis.
Yes.
Trustee Harris.
Yes.
Trustee Hill.
Yes.
President Kincaid.
Yes. Parks, update on police cars. Trustee Harris.
Well, the first question I have on the police cars is one, is that why are we putting new tires on vehicles that we're gonna get rid of?
The perks, 2 months ago, we were trying to, came to the council, we were trying to sell the cars in Baltimore. Since then, Baltimore Police Department's bought 2 new chargers. I was never able to give them information concerning the chargers. They moved forward in order to sell the cars. The charger requested, asked me to get them in condition to be sold, and I gave her the okay to do that.
Okay, then I'm just gonna give you my opinion. Look, we're not a dealership. We're selling something as is. We should not be putting any more money into anything that we sell. That's just my personal opinion. Secondly, is the vehicles are still sitting back here. Have we had any bites on getting rid of them?
The discussion I had was with the Baltimore, and that fell through.
Okay, I've had some discussion, pardon?
Let me finish. Go ahead.
I've had some discussion with Cruiser, and they're interested, and only what he wants is a year make and the mileage on it. And they would give us an office. And they're familiar with the cars because they did the striping of them anyway.
Do you have an email address for that person?
No, I have a phone number, I'll give it to you, his name is Keith.
All right, then I'll contact her.
Anything else, trustee Harris?
Well,
Can I make a
Hold on, let me finish.
so the cars, we asked at not the last meeting, but several meetings ago, the list of the equipment of the police department, have we gotten that down, or?
No, I still don't have the current list. I was working with trustee Mills to get a current list of the inventory that we had. Nothing ever came about that. So I have old lists.
We're still waiting on.
Well,
Which the old list is inaccurate, so it really
Hold
don't.
on, let Mr. Harris finish, please.
so, I'm willing to help out if I can, even if it takes to go back and talk to, what's
All I
the
need-
name that used to be here? Karen.
I need the updated inventory list. I mean, I have 3 different partial lists of inventory. The question that you had asked about the vehicles, we had 2 flat tires that were unfixable, and we had to replace all 4.
Yeah, I know, I talked to you, you said they was dry rotted. Pump them up, let them buy them like that.
They couldn't.
All right,
I'm done, okay, I'm done with it.
Thank you, Mr. Harris. Trustee Davis.
As far as the fireworks, where do we stand right now with the village and the fireworks?
Where do you understand?
Well, I know that council has voted not to allocate any village funds for that. We currently are a go on the fireworks because I know that there was some communication in the community stating that it was not a go on the fireworks. So
Correct.
we currently are moving forward with the fireworks.
That's the plan. That's
We
the
have
plan.
donated, and it's all businesses that have donated.
Yeah, everything is donated. There was an issue, last week that I hope we resolve, but everything's donated. There's no appropriation of any tax dollars. We pay the deposit and we have to pay, 2 weeks afterwards, pay the rest. And I'll get paid.
And it's all coming out of
Donations.
donations. And I guess was my point, it's just to make sure that everybody knows that we have businesses in this community that stepped up and donated. I personally think that the community ought to be able to provide fireworks at a minimum for every given days that we have. I would like to be able to see us give back to the community in some way, shape, or form, as opposed to constantly taking and constantly removing services and the like. So I just wanted to make sure I had gotten a couple of residents had come to me and asked, that said that they heard that it had been canceled. I just wanted to make sure that they knew publicly that it was not.
Okay. Payroll, trustee Hill.
Yes, the reason I asked this to be placed on the agenda is because we get different days when the council gets different. I want certain dates set so that I don't get the emails that I got in the past about payroll. So I would like to have a date set in part of the ordinance for elected officials, that the payroll for trustees, we already got the ones established for the president and the clerk, which should be the first of the month. Is that what
No,
they're paid?
we pay
For the last day.
Yeah, the last pay period. of
The last pay period of the month. It should be the same way for the council, the last pay period of the quarter, not the next quarter, because then you're going into another payroll.
So can you bring back before council an amended ordinance that,
It covers all of the, including the, planning commission. they give-
planning, housing, and fire department?
And fire department. I think there was one exception that the fire department had, which was theirs is during a holiday.
Actually, in every December, I pay people work.
It's the same, so
Right,
include that anyway,
Right.
so that it's written down.
Can I make it correct? I think the fire department, correct me if I'm wrong, Mr. Jinks, prefer to be paid at the end of the month.
Quarterly.
Is that correct? At the quarterly, at the end of the month? Because you run to the end of the month, not,
They wanna get paid.
Bottom line is.
you're missing like a week in there in your pay?
No, the way it's worked the last 3 years, I wait until that quarter is done and I turn in all runs for that quarter.
Right, so she can't pay you if you don't turn it in, so
Exactly.
you're turning them in at the end of that
At the
quarter.
end of the quarter,
So that's when you can't get paid until that next quarter,
correct.
except in December.
Except in December, we do make like a 2-week allowance, so the guys get their money before Christmas.
Right, because of the tax.
And then those last 2 weeks of the year, we roll it over into the next quarter.
Right, so that's what I'm saying, with them, that's gotta be an
Anyway,
exception.
so if it's the last day of the pay period, that's when they get.
All right.
I have a question.
Okay, can I make a motion to have attorney amend ordinance 290?
President Kincaid, can I ask you one quick question?
Hold on, let's get a motion, and I'll just.
I make a motion for the attorney to amend ordinance 290 to provide that all quarterly employees and elected officials are paid the last pay period of the quarter,
I get a second.
with the exception of the Christmas holiday, where President Kincaid will give you language, he have that in his,
No, it's paid right before Christmas.
just before.
Need a second on trustee Hill's motion? Second. Discussion, Clerk Mack, you had it.
I think we need to identify what are you considering a quarter? Is it a quarter from the 1st to the 30th or the 31st? Or you're saying a quarter is the second pay period of the 90-day period?
Trustee
Put the
Burch.
dates in there, it's March, June, August, and December.
So we're on the same page, so we're on the same page.
The quarter goes, we get paid March, June, September, December.
The last pay
Period of the quarter. Right.
So
That's
the
that.
March quarter is the last pay period of March.
So, in this last pay period, September, you guys.
paid on March 27th in the village, then that's when everybody else gets paid on March 27th.
Right.
And no post dated check.
The quarter.
Can I get a roll call on this motion, please?
Sure. Trustee Hill.
Yes.
Trustee Steer.
Yes.
Trustee Davis.
No.
Trustee Harris.
Yes.
Trustee Poderski.
Yes.
Trustee Tidwell.
Yes.
President Kincaid.
No. Mr. Stewart.
Good evening. Upon meeting with the DEQ and Patricia Hudis, there's been numerous items brought forth to me that we need to get up to date on, being get the water reliability study, the ISO, some of these things up to date with the DEQ. Water reliability study hasn't been updated since 1989. You know, it should have been updated when we did the water main project, you know, so on and so forth. So I'm trying to move forward, get this department up to snuff, and I have Shannon Fedorecki here from Father Con and Associates with a proposal, and our professionals actually do these studies in their fourth, and I would like to present you to Shannon, that can touch base more on these issues.
What is the proposal for?
She'll explain.
There's three components to the proposal. The first part is the basic planning, the demand projections, monthly, annual purchase and usage totals, annual usage totals per customer class, the water shortage response plan, an update to your hydraulic model, and inclusion with ISO requirements. You hadn't had an ISO study done since '89. The fire chief did undertake one more recently, but we haven't gotten that report yet, so that hasn't been submitted to the state. So we need to get a copy of that report, incorporate that into your water reliability study, get that turned into the state. Reliability studies by law have to be updated every 5 years. You haven't updated yours for 7. So your last 2 reviews from the DEQ have said you need to update your reliability study, you need to update your reliability study, so you need to update it. If you don't move forward, there is a likelihood that fines can come forward.
What is the proposal?
The proposal was 26 for the basic. We have an additional 4,500.
26,000 or 2,600?
26,000. And 4,500 to convert your old model to the GIS format. The DEQ is now looking for your general plan to be submitted to them in an electronic format under the ESRI codes using the Geographical Information System.
Which code?
Pardon?
Which code?
The new code, or the new law, ESRI, E-S-R-I, it's a standard language for reporting geographical information systems.
Who will be held accountable because this hasn't taken place in what? 7 years or so?
The ISO has taken place. The ISO was the one that they said hadn't been done since '89. We confirmed with your fire chief that it has been done more recently, and we spoke with ISO, it was done in 2007.
But if it's supposed to be done every 5 years?
No, ISO is different. Your water reliability study has to be done every 5 years. That needs to include your general plan, your hydraulic model, and a capital improvement plan.
And which one holds the fine?
That
The liability?
reliability study.
Okay, and that's what I'm referring to. Why is it 20-year period that done went past?
It's not 20 years. Your last reliability study was done 7 years ago. It's supposed to be done every 5. You're 2 years off.
Do we got a copy of this proposal? I don't see it. Did the council copy?
What's your due date, Sharon, from DEQ?
You had the conversation with Patricia Supervisor.
I talked to Patricia about this last week, we sat down, and she's gonna give it the next review, which, you know, she does a yearly review. Yes.
I'm just retaining this because nobody has any dollar amount in front of us to take action on any. No, I'm not saying, I'm just saying, to take action on something that nobody's has in front of.
I just wanted a discussion.
Okay,
Thank
thank
I just wanted to discuss that.
Yeah, thank you.
I have the proposal that I sent you.
All right. So you don't actually want to discuss it?
Yeah, I just wanted discussion.
All right, thank you.
Review, you know, let you know
As
what's
long as you guys have been doing this, why are you waiting? Why did you wait this long to bring it to our attention?
We didn't.
He bringing it to our attention.
It was brought to your attention under your previous DPW superintendent. And it was brought to his attention not only by us, but also by the DPW. You get a letter from.
So I don't know why it wasn't handled back then. I mean, this sounds like an issue that should have been addressed, years ago.
You get a letter from the MDEQ every year that says this is the result.
The study should have been updated when we got new
Water man, 2010.
It would have been.
Right, it should have 5 years ago.
Fault and blame don't make any difference.
All right, let's get it done. Thank you, Mr. Bill. Trustee Harris. Sign for Hickory Ridge Park.
Can I have a second, huh? Because the cheetah went down, the price went way down. Okay, in your packet, you had, I don't know, the pictures right in there. I have need to explain it to you because this one was from Philip Signs. You guys seen the floor.
I was gonna say, do you want me to hold it?
And,
I can help if you want.
yeah. This, I think, was 5,000 to do both. The other one came from Young Signs, and it's either two of those. One has the ordinance on it, and the other one has the sign itself. And that's option 1. And this is option 2. With this one and this one here. And they'll do those for $1,800. I think it's $1,850. That's both.
No matter which design?
No matter which design. I mean, it could be this one and that one, or.
No, I'm saying it's gonna be A one side or B the other side.
Right.
1,800?
Yes.
All right, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Can we get a motion to, entertain the, Haverhill Park sign?
Which one, both from 1800, right? Can you label A, the front one, the one with the, brick sign? and
Okay,
that's
this would be
right?
A because that's the one I liked. And this would be B.
I make a motion to, purchase, sign A in the dollar amount of $1,800. $1,850, excuse me, to be moved from the general fund to Parks and Rec for the purchase of the sign.
I got a question.
Discussion, go ahead.
Now, Brett, that's installed everything. There's no additional cost on that. There's no, I mean, that's them coming.
It's like you said, that's, and it, both of them, just, we can make it higher, what I mentioned out there. When they went out and did the measurements on the sign that's out there, it's lower because, and I think because that one blew down and they cut the legs off to, to mount it back on. So if we did the one on the side, they told her we probably want it a higher where it's visible.
Is that discussion on the motion? Can I get a roll call, clerk, Knight?
Trustee Harris.
Yes.
Trustee Hill.
Yes.
Trustee Davis.
Yes.
Trustee Steer.
Yes.
Trustee Poderski.
Yes.
Trustee Tidwell.
Yes.
President KK.
Yes. Trustee Harris, water billing debt service for Bramblewood, Riverbrook, and Meadow Creek.
Yeah, this was brought to my attention, actually, when we were talking about the study on the sewer and the debt that we would be occurring, and if we had to go take option 1 or option 2 with that sewer. So I went to looking into the seeing at this debt, and it occurs that maybe some of y'all on council knew, but it was never brought to my attention, never knew. These areas, Riverbrook, Meadow Creek, and Bramblewood does not pay into our water debt. And that's what I want to know why. We're talking probably about 400 mobile homes up there right now, plus 18 or so over here. That's a lot of money.
What,
You're not talking about the water project?
yes, he's talking about water debt.
The water debt they're not paying into, and I want to make sure if we go into this number.
I know we did it.
I remember we discussed that, and they said that that was already included in the number. And I went back and forth with them, letting them know that was not included in the number.
Shannon, can you have Fonzo, because I remember there was discussion prior
There
to
was.
that project, I remember we discussed that.
Can you have Mr. Khan give us a report on that door project? What Mr. Harris is saying is every resident that lives in a residence pays $35 for a door charge.
Okay.
Whereas you live in a modular or manufactured community, you don't pay that $35. And I remember when we did the door, there was an issue, Trustee Hill is correct, it got bought up back in 2010. And if you can give us a report.
Well, I tell you, and that's one of the reasons we're so low in our water debt, in our water fund. Also, it's not that's not fair to the rest of the residents in this village. And I know me, for one, as a taxpayer and a water bill payer, that's not fair.
Well, actually, you probably have to do what the county's doing to us, look at things. But, and then also, can we look into the charges that we are putting out there now on commercial and industrial, because our water ordinance states that the rates are not supposed to be the same. And
I think that's your
also-
hookup rate, is what you're looking at.
No, she's right, because it's by the meter.
I'm talking
Yeah,
about
but you
rates.
can charge them more money for a
Yes.
gallon of water?
Yes.
Per unit?
Yes, yes.
I remember you bringing that up.
Yes, and it also states that there's a 10% fee added onto the water bills that's later than 6 months, is it, or 3 months, 1 quarter? And then after 6 months past due, it goes on to the property taxes and the liens.
Yeah, but that's something we need to look at, because where we're doing in that tax thing, we're putting more burden on ourselves, because we're putting in, and you don't collect, you put it on your taxes this year, just for instance, any water bills going to taxes this year, we don't collect until September 2014.
Yeah.
Right.
So you still running sewer.
So, example, we had an industrial plant here that worked on steel, they use a lot of water. So that industrial plant will be charged a lot more for the water usage. Because we charge based on the gallons of water that we utilize.
Okay, so who's gonna look into this?
Yeah, I already got it written out, I was gonna send it over, but I couldn't get it on the agenda.
Okay, but I don't wanna drag on, because once we go with that other sewer thing, we need to know, have an answer to
Next
that.
week for the water and sewer, we'll just find it all out and give it over to Attorney Davis.
So,
That's fine.
but you got two issues you look at. You want, the first question is, the water debt was at $35, not the unit charge. And her question is the unit charge for commercial business.
Hers is the unit charge for the building, I'm looking at the debt charge per.
Right, the $35.
And the same thing, I wanna make sure that doesn't, if we take option 2 or 4 in that, into that sewer, we're missing out.
That's right, that's what I'm saying at the last meeting. There's 3 charges, there's a residential, there's commercial, and then there's industrial.
And one thing that I've noticed is I am working through the list to see who's not getting charged for the billing charge, as well as the readiness to serve, as well as the water debt. So I'll have that list ready for you guys by next meeting as well.
All right.
Next item, President Pro Tem.
This item is done.
I know it's not yours. I believe this was brought to Attorney Davis' attention by Trustee Davis.
Well, in the March meeting, the regular March meeting of this year, there was a motion that was made to appoint Trustee Hill President Pro Tem. And in looking at it, patrolling law, MCL 6513 of the General Village Act, was amended effective on March 28th of 2013, which means that neither of the versions of the law set the time period for the appointment or restrict the frequency of the process itself. So based on the new law becoming effective after the appointment of Trustee Hill, I think that we need to make a new motion for Pro Tem. And I move that pursuant to the new law that was amended in 6513, which came effective on March 28, 2013, that this council appoint Trustee Dan Steer to be President Pro Tem until sometime after November 20, 2013, as it states and set forth in the amended edition of MCL 65.3.
Can we get a second on the motion?
Second.
Second, discussion.
Okay, when that motion came out, I even expressed that law with Attorney Davis. We talked about that law, and I brought that law to this table at that time. And that law was into place when that motion was taken. So if he has a problem with me being pro tempore, he should contact me and let me know what his problem is. Because I think I've done a really good job being pro tempore. People call me with issues, and I take those issues and I take it to the president, and I inform him of those issues. If it has something to do with the attorney, I take that issue to the attorney, and I inform them of those issues. So to bring it to the table, you should have, if you have issues with the way I'm doing my business at President Pro Tem. Because I'm doing it on the table, because I am the most senior trustee on this board. And I fight for everything and everybody in this community, even people on this board. Even with some things that people that I don't agree with them sometimes. But if they are in the right and I feel that they need my support, I will support them. So to sit here and try to state that I was not appointed correctly at that time, you are misinformed, because I brought that law to the attorney and we discussed it in emails.
I think so, and I'm the one that made that nomination.
The law was amended on March 28th.
I really think that we should have clarification and the law sitting in front of us to make that determination. And far as Daniel Steer, which I have nothing against you, but we don't even know your residence. You know, as far as I'm concerned, you shouldn't be even actually sitting on the board right now, because we don't know your whereabouts. I don't know if you're even a resident of New Haven.
Trustee Gresham,
What is my,
no. Trustee Gresham.
can I please ask what this MCL is again?
6513.
65.
Trustee Harris.
Well, I'll tell you, and the reason I second that, because it was brought up the night that she was appointed. If you recall, you allowed the vote to go, and then at the end, you brought up that it wasn't her appointment, and there was a letter in our box from Attorney Davis, what that law was at that time. And that's why, and at that time, I pulled my vote back, and then the minutes show that.
So what did the law?
And after that, I think there was like 2 weeks, we had gotten an email, and on top of it, it was written that from Attorney Davis that that this law goes in effect on the 28th, and I think it was March.
Right, and the law does not alleviate the point that I can be appointed by the council.
Right, but the night that we discussed it at this table, and the night that y'all appointed, the night that she was appointed, it did not stand. The law at that time required